How can we believe in a story that is not physically or historically true? That is the question of this century. I am not being facetious. I will lay it out and I will say that this is the question to be faced up to if we are to reclaim, I hesitate to say it, religion, if we are to truly step into the hero's journey, and if we are to find any sort of collective reason to come together and be semi-cohesive, to share an experience, to share some bit of information, to share some sort of game that we all enjoy. Now, facing up to that question is not an easy task. I am not trying to go to a pre-rational, pre-enlightenment, pre-modern sort of perspective here. A meta-modern perspective recognizes the traditional view, the modern view, the postmodern view, and tries to synthesize it or tries to kind of recognize the good and bad qualities of each of those stages, and tries to then lean into something that does motivate us and does move us. Because this is the question behind the meaning crisis and the meta crisis. The meaning crisis refers to all of the drags of society that have upshot depression and upshot medication and upshot all of these bad mental health statistics. The meta crisis is a reference to out in the world, the dead zones in the ocean, the PFAS chemicals in the water, your soil health going down, your population growth being poor, your economics, your AI, nukes, all of these big things out in the world that are coming to a head, seem to be coming up to that planetary limit. So if we are to face into that mystery just out in the world to purely survive, we'll need to navigate unknown space. We'll need to navigate loads. And to do that, we need a story to orientate ourselves. You cannot plan a party without being energized and enthusiastic and selling it to people as if it's already made. The first person you tell about this party, you have to say, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be great, I'm going to ask these other people as well, and it's going to be a great old time. Because if you don't do it, if you don't have the story and really hold it and believe it and surrender into it, then no one else is going to surrender into it. No one's going to follow you into that party or down that path or this way of being. It's not going to happen. So you have to, if you want to learn to swim, you have to get into the water. You cannot simply read the books and try to use some algorithm to understand it. So if we are to navigate that massive problem of the meta crisis with all of its massive individual problems within it, we are going to need to be able to get into the water and not logic our way, be willing to kind of take a step forward when it's maybe uncertain. And that is scary when it's on that scale. So let's not pretend it's not. On the other side, when it comes to the meaning crisis, it is still scary because it means that we are taking responsibility for ourselves, for our lives, our decisions, and that if we make a wrong turn through no fault of our own, but simply because the story we told ourselves wasn't quite right for this particular moment, then also that's harsh, that's scary. But we are embodied creatures and there is no place, there is no way of thinking that is outside of that paradigm. The Enlightenment thought that we can be some objective observer of the world is a fallacy. That doesn't make sense. Even within science, science itself is a storytelling mechanism. If I combine this chemical with this chemical, then I get this. That is a narrative. If, then. So to understand it is to narrativize it. Now that's overly simplistic, and there is, as in like the scientific method was developed so that we could all get perspectives and have our kind of point of view and try to hone in on this truth, that it's all triangulating around this one thing, so we can be pretty certain that's true. I get it. No problem. I'm not trying to go pre-science or trying to diminish science here at all. I simply mean that for anyone trying to understand what is being done in the research, for anyone to come up with a research proposal, story is needed. Once it comes to the embodied part of these things, the story is needed. So, and before I jump into the next step here, I just want to say that there is no such thing as this kind of solid touch on reality with that certainty that this definitely is, whether it's on a collective front or an individual front. When it's on a collective front, you're trusting everyone else to be some bit coordinated, to be some bit correct, to be some bit honest. You are trusting them to help you make sense of this truth. When it's on an individual front, if you want to be really skeptic and go all the way back to just the individual, as you look at the world, you understand the world through story. So I've used the example before, or Jonathan Piaget loves using this for the water bottle. Your brain does not say, that the atom's here and it's in this sort of shape. It looks like it could contain liquid, therefore it's a water bottle. No, we just see it and we get the story first. And I can give you the example of, if you look at a blank wall, you will see a blank wall. I'll tell you, look, it's a perfectly white wall. And you'll take a glance at it and you'll be like, yeah, no worries at all. And then I'll point out that over on the left side, there's a mark on it and it's pretty big, it's pretty obvious, but you didn't see it first time around because I kind of primed you not to see it. I kind of encouraged you to see the white wall by phrasing it as a white wall. But now once you've seen it, you can't unsee it because technically the part of our eyes, the part of our sight that is actually accurate is actually really small, and the rest of it, everything in our periphery, is kind of our brain making its best guess. This is how you get all the visual effects, or visual hallucinations or tricks that you can get on the internet and stuff like that. And I've used them in previous videos as well. So there is no point of true contact with reality that doesn't involve some form of storytelling. Now that is a lot to digest. That's a big pill to swallow, I'm not going to lie. Because we want to be in control. We want for things to be certain. Change is grand as long as we can understand it, perhaps. But if we want to motivate ourselves, if we want to change our story, if we want to become more responsible, more empowered, more courageous, more wise, we need to aspire to that first, and then we need to let it talk to us. So the question is, if we are brave enough to face up to that question, what happens? What do we actually do then? It's like, okay, the story's not true, and yet I'm meant to believe in it. That gets all of my heckles up. I don't like that. And yet when I listen to these motivational speakers, when I listen to this stuff, I'm trying to learn the language. I'm trying to get them to kind of jumpstart me to believe this story, because I can't believe it myself, because I can't make that jump myself. Just believing in the story, just manifesting it, just deluding myself into believing I am this other character that I'm not yet there. Like, this is the human kind of predicament of being something but also wanting to be, and you can't, those two never meet, because you're always going to want to be something. This is what it is to have aspiration. This is what it is to have some sort of drive and ambition or anything like that. So we feel it on that front. We feel it when it comes to the individual. Now let's bring it into the collective. It's already hard enough on the individual level. Now let's bring it to the collective. Okay, for the collective to work, for us to share a story that is not physically true or not historically true, and yet we all treat it as true, and we can be facetious here, we can use Santa if you want. But for us to do that, we need rituals that we are all disciplined, that we are all kind of attached to. We need to have rituals that we surrender ourselves to, that we give up our freedoms for this thing. And the only way we do that is if we believe the story. There's no one that is going to surrender these things if they don't believe that it makes the world a better place, if they don't believe it feeds into the collective kind of oomph of whatever's going on. That just, it doesn't happen. There has to be a buy-in into this collective. So we can see this again if we use like the analogy of a party. To set up a party, you have to be enthusiastic, you have to sell it, you have to be oomphed about it. And you need some sort of homing thing, you need some sort of draw that people come back to this frequently. And that's how the collective then works. That's how you form a community. Because doing it once for a party, grand, but you can only sell so often without kind of having to sit back into some bigger story that we are doing this because this is the longest day of the year, or this is the shortest day, or this is the day when somebody did something historic. Whatever it is. This is the day we celebrate something. All of that. So we have to buy into that as being a valid story, something worth value, something that we actually valorize, something that we all collectively hold as a true value. That's what's needed. Then once we get past the individual, once we get past the collective, and then we step into the spiritual, which is, I'm going to use the term spiritual in the sense of like team spirit. So we're kind of trying to build this up to a place here, and trying to have some sort of story on the spirit level, then we're getting into an absolute chasm of, again, heckles being raised, this feeling like a very uncomfortable conversation. This is no longer nice. But to do that, we have to do the same as we do for the individual. We have to set an aspiration and then relate to it. We have to commune with it and let that aspiration judge us. We are not living up to this spirit. We are not living up to this team spirit kind of huzzah. As in, are you encouraging your fellow teammates? Are you giving them a clap on the back? Are you asking how they are? Are you pushing them? Are you driving them? Are you doing this for the team spirit? And using that as your ruler to measure yourself with. And on a bigger scale, your town spirit, your county spirit, your country spirit, your intellectual pursuits, your artistic pursuits, these different spirits that draw us and pull us forward and help us orientate towards something that we think is good. How can we surrender into that story? And it's a lot. So this is the metamodern turn to say, yes, we as biological beings have biases. We have tricks that can be tricked on us, and we still have to move with them anyway. Just what can you do? This is the machine we're working with, and you just got to use it. It's like, okay, no worries. And then for how to motivate ourselves into the becoming mode, okay, then we have to tell ourselves a story, then we have to do the hero's journey, and we have to do all of this. It's like, okay, the hero's journey kind of works. I've ambition to be this type of person, an artistic person, kind of a community person, a driven person, a courageous person, a wise person. Again, we're getting that to the virtues there. Grand. Okay, then we bring that into the community, and it's like, okay, my ambitions, I want to surrender them into these rituals, because the rituals are something that builds the community, that give us this network, that bring us all together. Okay, grand, that's tough sell, but yeah, sure, got it. And then for the spiritual, for that collective then to have some sort of spirit of its own, a team spirit, something like that, that draws everyone forward, and we use that team spirit as a ruler to measure ourselves with, to see if our hero's journey is actually aiming towards the right thing. And we're meant to believe that story. So we have our own flawed mechanisms. We have our individual story. We have the flawed mechanisms of the community, and we have the collective story. And none of the stories are true, and the mechanisms can all be butchered and done wrong and to the wrong, in the wrong direction. And yet we need to find a way of maneuvering in that space if we are to surpass the meaning crisis and the meta crisis. If we are to get past, to get over this lack of North Star, if we are to face into Nietzsche's prophecy of God being dead and the streets will run red with his blood, and will we have the wisdom to wash our hands of it? Who knows? And of the meta crisis, which is just the mechanisms that got us so far and brought us from pre-modernity into this space we have now, with this camera I'm talking into, with this microphone, with the phone you're probably watching this on, or whatever screen you're on, and with all of the lights, and with all of the warmth and insulation, and all of the roads and the cars and everything that we have. Like, oh my God, it's been amazing. And so we don't want to get rid of that. But we need to try to navigate, recognize that those mechanisms are kind of failing. Like, that technology isn't bringing... Okay, at whatever level you're at, the world seems a bit weird, and seems to be kind of breaking down in whatever ways you're exposed to. That's the meta crisis. So to navigate both sides of that, we'll take this question of how do we face into a story that is not physically true, not historically true, but is literally true or figuratively true. If we treat it, if we act in a certain way, then it becomes a force in the world. Again, we can use Santa if we want to be facetious and say, yeah, economically true, politically probably true, culturally true, yes, 100%. Physically, does that make a difference? Maybe we could do some hard cases here where we could say, if you were an only child for your whole life and then you find out when you're 20 to 30 that, oh, actually you do have half brother or half sister or something like that. Is your story of being an only child any different? Or of that horrible story, oof, this one's going to get me in trouble. But of someone having a kid and then finding out when the kid is 20 or 30 that the kid isn't biologically theirs. Okay, whew, sorry for bringing that one up. But again, does that truly change? I get the amount of emotion that would come up in that situation, but the relationship, the relational value that has been built there, it has a value. That doesn't just go. The story that was told built something. So, all to say that the stories we tell ourselves are massively true. Surrendering into the fact that these stories are not yet true, and yet we're going to believe them anyway and surrender ourselves into it. We're going to place our existential bet on that, is a bravery that I can only hope to muster myself, and inspires me every time I see it in other people. And yes, there is the risk, there is the hairs on the back of our neck of this could go horribly wrong. So let's not be naive, let's not be too innocent about this endeavor. This is a very serious question. It is, I believe, the big question of this century. And there's a lot of contenders for that title. So I'm going to leave this video here. I know that was quite a lot. Thank you for your time and attention, and I will see you in the video next week. Bye, guys.